Howdy, Jacob here. Today we're looking at Climb Global Solutions in the electronic equipment, instruments, and components industry. 321 million market cap on less than that enterprise value. Sub-billion dollar companies. I do like to look at insider ownership, and we see almost 17% held by insiders. So there are a lot of board members, management who own shares of the company, which is better for you as the investor because you can think that as a passive investor, you can think that they're likely going to do what's best for the business because they themselves own shares. They want the stock price to go up as much as you if you're the owner or you own any shares at all. And so that insider ownership is a very positive note, not an end all be all. Not saying just because there's ownership that I'm buying or anything like that or that you should buy, just an interesting thing to look at. Growth is still essentially what it was 10 years ago, but there was some big sell-off in 2016, and they've been growing very heavily since then. 13%, 15%, 20%, 12%, 7%, 15%. So let's look at that, see what that 2016 was. We actually don't see a devastation. I wouldn't have been surprised if I would have seen, a sell-off of assets, but we don't actually see that, which is just kind of interesting to me. So what exactly happened? I mean, something must have happened. They gained $25 million of accounts receivable, accounts payable. So business, yeah, something happened in the business between 2015, 2016 that I'm not entirely seeing. I'm not seeing very well, but we do see great increases on the operating and gross side. Pretty low gross margin, sub 20%. Pretty low operating margin, sub 5%, but that's still fine. They produce cash flow and earnings, so not a problem to me. Been paying the same dividend for the last 10 years, so I definitely won't be changing that in my assumptions. And it is almost 1%. It is a 0.97% yield. The balance sheet shows 36 million cash on hand, 1 million short-term debt, 1 million long-term debt. Not terribly concerned by that balance sheet. Great cash with very little interest-bearing debt. Balance sheet is pretty solid. It's not entirely consistent, but there's been free cash flow positive every year since 2018. And they use cash for share repurchases, their small dividend, and then acquisitions periodically. So I think we're ready to make some assumptions here on the revenue growth side. Recently been very good. We'll see whether they can hold that consistent or not. I'm going to say 7%. As for margins, they haven't been as high, but free cash flow is much higher. I'd love to see that. Okay, let's do 4 and 6 with share change of. They buy back a lot of shares. They issue shares through stock-based compensation, though. And so let's just say they essentially offset stock-based compensation. Terminal PE, market average. I don't think it's anything to brag home about with the growth rate. But now that I look at it, return on invested capital as high as it is, that's pretty solid. Return on assets, pretty poor, though. So return on invested capital, same as equity because they have very little debt. Okay, I'll give them a little bit of a premium over market average. Looking for that 15% return. So here we're saying a bit of capital allocation to share repurchases and the dividend, not a substantial amount, maybe 3 to 4 million each, and then a bit on acquisitions, reinvestment to get a 7% return, hold these type of margins. And we're saying it needs to fall 45% to get to the return we're looking for here. I think if you really understood this business and are confident in them consistently producing 10% in free cash flow, I think that the return you're going to get on this could be very interesting. But for me, I'm going to be a bit conservative and base my numbers off of history. And I'm not someone who, I do think the world looks way better in the future. I'm definitely an optimist, but when it comes to putting my money to work, I'm definitely very, very strict with what I invest in. So for me right now, it's not obviously cheap. So I'll be reviewing other companies, and I hope you enjoy the video and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.